Just before we begin, I want to give a special shout out to my friend Nash. He does detailing on cars and teaches how it's done, and the link to his channel is in the description. If you would like to subscribe to his channel, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Frederick is going to his class. He is at his school and a very important science project is going on, and he rushes down the hallway to go to the class very quickly as he leaves his cafeteria at his school. And he tells his friend John hello, and he walks and he goes to his locker, meets some friends, gets some other things like his notebook, and goes back to that classroom. And he sits down, goes and takes his papers out in his notebook, and realizes he forgot the most important book, his chemistry book. And the teacher is very ornery when they ask about the project with nature that they're dealing with, how plants work and whatnot, because everyone has to take out their book to a certain page, and he doesn't have his. And the teacher is very ornery and strict on this day. And Frederick says, "Mr. Johnson, I forgot my book." Mr. Johnson says, "Hurry up. Really quickly, I'll let you off the hook this time." So then he goes through the hallway to the back of the school, and he thinks he sees someone. Then he looks closely and there's no one there. So he goes into the classroom. It's very dark. And recently, he thinks about all the meteorites that fell the other night that he was watching, and he saw also these strange colors, just as you just saw in the hallway, of the strange figure that looked slightly yellow and purple. And this was on the news. And then he goes and turns the light on, and he sees all these small alien action figure statues, similar to a Star Wars figure of Yoda that you would see. And he looks at them, doesn't know why the teacher in the study hall would have these strange aliens in the classroom. They're small with big eyes, with a blank stare, with black eyes. Some are orange, some are purple, some are green and blue. And he turns the light on and gets his book and leaves. And then the door closes on its own, and the aliens stare at him. And he really realizes these things are starting to move and come closer, and that these must be some strange robots or something. And he brushes it off. But he does know, with his faith with God, is very strong, and that nothing can hurt him. And he takes out a coin out of his pocket and sees if they have any reaction. And they all start melting. But there's some loud noises coming from the ceiling. But he's able to get a grip on the door and get out and tell the teacher what occurred, and some of the scientists that were locally over down the street in the science lab come over and take a special cleaning solution and a repellent to get rid of these pests from far beyond from the school. And many other reports of this strange phenomenon in the parks, at the grocery stores, even at the wild Walmart with wild people. have all seen these strange phenomenons. It's always good to keep a level head when in perilous situations, and to not be moved by the situation, but move the enemy. And Frederick had a good day, but was on edge and kept his eyes peeled and always saw strange little bugs that would crawl on the wall, but brushed it off as nothing. After a long day at school, Edward finally gets off and goes with his friend John into the woods to do camping. And finally, the hour has come after getting detentions and yelled at. And the crickets start chirping, but in his mind they've been chirping the entire day. The Big Dipper can be seen in the night sky. Previously, the amazing twilight faded the sky with nice dark blue and green coloring. They take their backpacks and they continue walking through the wilderness. And then they set up their sleeping bags, their tents. They study different herbs. And they fall and trip on a log because they were not looking carefully enough. Then they settle down by the campfire. And then what is seen, off in the distance, is a couple of coyotes yelling, which usually they're supposed to be howling. They find this rather odd, and they go and see and they shoo off the creatures. These coyotes are very creature-like. As the night goes on, they eat and have conversations about culture and society and school. And then there's some strange flashes of lightning in the sky, which they perceive as thunder and just continue doing what they're doing. But they just don't see any clouds. And then, out of the woods, they see a small little man slowly coming towards them. Very quickly, and they're very puzzled, and they take out their rifles just in case there's a confrontation. And then a couple of little gray people, it looks like, that are just coming through the trees, like Star Wars or some kind of science fiction movie, and they think that they're seeing things. And then they asked him what kind of sports were they playing inside the tree trunks. And the two look at each other. It's like, no one plays sports in a tree trunk. And they know that this must be some kind of a trick. And they fire a warning shot. And many of the little gray people vanish. And then, as usual in these situations, they start to pray because they believe that this must be some kind of evil being, if it's an alien, or if it's a demon or whatever, that these strange beings in the dark woods are not from God or from anything good. And then they obviously start to say, don't do that, it's not going to work. And then they pray more and more, and then they start to shriek. And a giant spaceship comes, and a blazing fire happens, and all the little gray people vanish. And obviously, the two young men are very shaken. So they go and pack their things up and go closer to their house. that they use for camping. And oddly enough, even inside they have their peace and they're safe. But there is still many things chirping. But they are not crickets necessarily. Sirens can be heard out in the distance. And no one really knows what's going on because of the news. There's all these different sightings that are going on. And they know that something must be going on, nationwide or worldwide. The sirens sound close to where they are. And then they realize they do not know what happened to the coyote creatures, as they hear sightings on the news that they have apparently been attacking people. So they turn on YouTube and they watch their friendly neighborhood YouTuber that does the police scanners. And yes, as they see, there is many of these strange creatures walking around and attacking people. And the military's gotten involved. And the political terrorists were using these creatures as allies with their great purge upon the country. And it makes you wonder, who are the creatures in reality? Sometimes people that look so normal may be really creatures in disguise. Because in these situations, the creatures, the aliens, and the people were both causing chaos to different cities and different areas. And we just don't know. Sometimes we don't always know for sure who is the creature and who isn't. Because sometimes in real life, not all creatures are ugly. And not all creatures are obvious. And some great aliens can be politicians. And that's why with these stories, it's always good to not believe everything you hear.